Imagine a world trembling under the shadow of a tyrant, a cosmos born from chaos, where a single child's cry could unravel the heavens. Welcome, seekers of ancient tales, to the electrifying saga of Zeus, a name that thunders through time as king of the gods. His story begins not with glory, but with betrayal, a desperate mother's gamble, and a prophecy that promised blood. From a secret cave to the peak of Mount Olympus, Zeus clawed his way from hunted infant to ruler of the skies, wielding lightning as his blade. This is no gentle myth, but a war of gods and titans that shook the earth to its core. So, brace yourself, and let's plunge into the storm of Zeus's rise, a tale that still crackles with power millennia later. Before Zeus hurled his lightning bolts across the heavens, the universe was a wild, primal place. In Greek mythology, it all began with chaos, a swirling void of nothing and everything. Picture it as an endless abyss, a dark soup of potential where no light or form existed, just an eternal churn waiting to give birth to existence. From this chaos emerged the first beings. Gaia, the earth, a vast and nurturing mother whose body stretched across the horizon, and Uranus, the sky, a boundless canopy of stars and storms arching over her. Together, they brought forth the Titans, towering godlike figures who strode the young world in a golden age of raw, untamed power. These were beings of immense scale, their footsteps carving valleys, their voices rumbling like distant thunder. But peace wasn't destined to last. Uranus, with his starry gaze and jealous heart, grew wary of his children's strength. He feared their potential to rival him, so he took drastic action. He imprisoned the youngest of his offspring, the monstrous Cyclopes with their single, blazing eyes, and the 100-handed Hecatoncheias, grotesque giants with 50 heads and 100 arms each, deep within Gaia's womb, locking them in caverns where their cries echoed unanswered. This act of cruelty sparked a rift. Gaia, the earth herself, felt the pain of her captive children, their struggles trembling through her rocky flesh. Enraged, she turned against Uranus, her once beloved partner, and began to plot his downfall. She summoned her Titan children to her side, her voice a whisper carried on the wind. "Who will rise against your father?" she asked, her tone laced with both sorrow and fury. The Titans hesitated, their massive forms shifting uneasily under the weight of her words. Only one stepped forward, Cronus, the youngest, with a glint of ambition in his eyes. Gaia armed him with a sickle, its curved blade glinting with an edge sharp enough to slice through the fabric of the cosmos. Cronus waited in the shadows, then struck. He ambushed Uranus under the cover of night, severing him from power in a brutal, bloody act that left the sky wounded. Its ichor raining down to spawn new life below. Cronus claimed the throne, standing tall over a fractured world, but his victory was tainted. The cycle of betrayal had only just begun. Power in mythology rarely comes without a curse. An oracle, perhaps a voice from the fates themselves, delivered a prophecy to Cronus, a warning that chilled his immortal bones. He too would be overthrown by one of his own children, just as he had toppled Uranus. Fear gnawed at him, turning his golden reign into a paranoid tyranny. Desperate to defy fate, Cronus devised a gruesome plan. Each time his wife, Rhea, bore him a child, he seized the newborn, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, and swallowed them whole, one by one. He trapped them in his cavernous belly, believing this would secure his rule. A father consuming his own offspring, their divine sparks flickering within him, unable to escape. But fate, as it often does, had other plans, and the stage was set for a new hero to emerge. Rhea, Cronus's wife and a mother stretched to her limits by grief. She had watched helplessly as her husband devoured their children, her heart breaking with each loss. When she conceived her sixth child, she resolved that this one would live. This child was Zeus. Rhea's mind raced as she cradled her newborn son, his tiny form radiating a quiet strength even then. She knew Cronus would come for him, his paranoia sharper than any blade. So, she turned to deception, a mother's cunning born of desperation. She took a stone, smooth and cold from the riverbed, wrapped it in swaddling clothes to mimic a babe, and presented it to Cronus. The Titan, blinded by his own fear, swallowed it without hesitation, the weight settling in his gut as he smirked in triumph. Meanwhile, Rhea fled with Zeus, her steps swift and silent, carrying him across the sea to the rugged island of Crete. There, she hid him in a cave on Mount Ida, a jagged peak shrouded in mist and mystery. The cave was a sanctuary, its walls dripping with moisture, its depths alive with the hum of unseen forces. Rhea entrusted Zeus to the care of the nymph Amalthea, a figure of debate in the myths. Some say she was a gentle goat whose milk nourished the young god, her horns curling toward the sky. Others claim she was a divine caretaker, a nymph with eyes like starlight who sang lullabies to soothe him. To mask Zeus's cries from Cronus's ever-watchful ears, warrior spirits called the Curetes guarded the cave. They danced and clashed their spears against their shields, their rhythmic din echoing across the mountains, a chorus of metal and might. Cronus, far away on his throne, remained oblivious, his mind dulled by the false security of the stone in his belly. Zeus grew in that hidden refuge, his body hardening with each passing season, his spirit swelling with a storm's restless energy. Fed by Amalthea's milk and tempered by the wild air of Crete, he was no ordinary child. He was a force, a tempest in waiting. As he reached manhood, whispers of his true heritage reached him, perhaps carried by the wind or murmured by Gaia herself. He learned of his siblings, swallowed alive by their father, still trapped within Cronus's gut. He heard of the prophecy that had driven Cronus to such madness, the same prophecy that now pointed to him as the harbinger of change. A fire kindled in Zeus's chest, a blend of rage, justice, and ambition. He gazed out from his cave, the horizon stretching before him, and knew the time for hiding was over. The world would soon tremble at his name. Zeus returned to confront Cronus, but he was no fool rushing into battle. He sought allies, beginning with his mother, Rhea, who had risked everything to save him. Together, they hatched a plan. Rhea approached Cronus with a goblet of wine, its surface shimmering with a secret potion, a bitter brew designed to undo his cruel feast. She played the dutiful wife, her hands steady as she offered it to him. Cronus drank deeply, unsuspecting, and soon convulsed in agony. The potion worked its magic, forcing him to vomit up his children, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, one after another. They emerged fully grown, their eyes blazing with divine fury, their bodies unbowed despite years in their father's gut. United with Zeus, they formed a rebel alliance, a family forged in betrayal and ready for war. But Cronus was no easy foe. He called upon the Titans, his colossal kin, who rallied to his side with earth-shaking roars. These were beings of legend, their forms towering over mountains, their strength capable of uprooting forests with a single swipe. The Titanomachy erupted, a war that spanned 10 brutal years, a clash of immortals that tore the fabric of the world apart. Mountains crumbled under the weight of their battles, rivers boiled as stray blasts of power struck the earth, and the sky itself seemed to weep with storms of fire and ash. Zeus and his siblings fought valiantly, but the Titans' sheer might threatened to overwhelm them. The young gods needed an advantage, a spark to turn the tide. Zeus sought counsel from Gaia once more, descending into the earth's depths where her imprisoned children languished. The Cyclopes and Hecatoncheias, still bound in their dark pits, greeted him with wary eyes. Zeus offered them freedom, a chance to strike back at the Titans who had forsaken them. They agreed, and the Cyclopes, master smiths with hands that shaped raw chaos into form, forged weapons of unmatched power. For Zeus, they crafted the thunderbolt, a jagged streak of light that crackled with the fury of 1,000 storms. For Poseidon, a trident that churned the seas into roaring tempests. For Hades, a helm of darkness that cloaked him in shadow, turning him into a spectre of dread. The Hecatoncheias joined the fray, their 100 arms hurling boulders like a relentless barrage, each strike a thunderous blow against the Titan lines. With these allies and weapons, Zeus led a renewed assault. The Titans faltered, their ranks breaking under the onslaught, until Cronus himself faced Zeus in a final stand. With a roar that split the heavens, Zeus struck him down with a thunderbolt, casting him into Tartarus, the deepest abyss, where chains of shadow bound him for eternity. Victory belonged to Zeus. He stood atop Mount Olympus, thunderbolt in hand, its electric glow illuminating a world reshaped by war. The air crackled with his presence, the clouds bowing to his will. He divided the realms with his brothers, a pact to share the spoils of their triumph. Poseidon claimed the seas, his trident stirring waves that whispered his name. Hades took the underworld, his helm casting an eternal gloom over the realm of the dead. Zeus declared himself Lord of the sky, his throne a peak piercing the heavens, King of the gods, his voice the law of the cosmos. But ruling was no simple task. The mythology of Zeus is a tapestry of triumphs and trials, woven with threads of rebellion and his own tempestuous nature. He married Hera, his sister and the goddess of marriage, a union meant to solidify his reign. Yet their bond was stormy, marked by Hera's fiery temper and Zeus's roving eyes. His affairs were legendary, sparking tales of gods and heroes born from mortal unions. With Metis, he fathered Athena, who sprang fully armed from his head after he swallowed her mother, a grim echo of Cronus's deeds. With mortal women, he sired Hercules and Perseus, heroes whose labors would echo through time. Hera's jealousy fueled countless conflicts, her wrath a counterpoint to Zeus's lust. Still, he ruled with an iron grip, facing down threats like the giants, born from Gaia's rage, and Typhon, a monstrous storm beast whose 100 heads spewed fire. Each battle tested his dominion, yet his thunderbolt never wavered. Zeus wasn't just a god of chaos. He became the arbiter of order, the keeper of oaths, the judge of mortals and immortals alike. His thunderbolt symbolized not just power, but authority, a reminder that even the mightiest must defend what they've won. His flaws, his passions, his victories, they paint a portrait of a god both divine and deeply human. The story of Zeus is more than a tale of gods and titans. It's a mirror of human struggles, ambition, family, and the cost of power. From a child hidden in a cave to the ruler of Olympus, Zeus's journey reminds us that even the mightiest begin in shadows. His legacy ripples through mythologies worldwide, influencing tales of kings and storms across cultures. What do you think? Was Zeus a hero, a tyrant, or something in between? Drop your thoughts below, and if you enjoyed this dive into Greek mythology, subscribe for more stories from the ancient world. Until then, keep chasing the myths that light up the past.